I wanted to stay and help people load some stuff because he was going to send the other guys to have another auction get ready. So I said, yeah, I'll stay. So I stayed up there Sunday, and the next day after that auction, it was raining. So I was like, well, I'll just go out here and just piddle around, get stuff ready for whoever wants to come pick stuff up. So it was raining, and I went out there and I was organizing around some stuff, and then I just got done with everything that I could because I had a certain list of however many people was coming by, and it wasn't very many. And I start walking around the edge of the wood line there, and I come across a couple of tracks, and I was like, that's not a bear track. I mean, there was just a couple of them that I could make out pretty good. I mean, you could see the toes and the heel. I was like, that's literally like a man's track. I was like, that's Bigfoot. I joked around in my mind. I was like, somebody's playing tricks on me. And so going on after the next couple of days there, nothing really happened. I mean, Monday and Tuesday, I had a couple of people coming in to pick up their stuff. I mean, I was just hanging around, just staying busy. And Wednesday was when that all changed. So I had a guy come in there earlier that morning, and then the rest of that day it was dead. He had a couple pallets of stuff, and I took the skid loader and I picked it up and I loaded it on his trailer. He went on about his day, and it was going on about 12:45, 1 o'clock, somewhere around in that range. I think it was actually before 2 o'clock. But I went to the service truck and grabbed my cooler and get a sandwich and a Coke, and I heard something make a growlish grunt. It wasn't like anything I'd ever heard. I was like, what in the world was that? So I looked over towards the wood line, and I didn't see nothing. And I went back to go try and grab my sandwich again, and I heard it again, and I looked, and there's this cliff. So where this sawmill was is a big flat, and then the ridge went up. So the ridge is probably 100 yards away, and I looked, and I caught a glimpse of something black moving through the tree line. I was like, that's that bear. So I sat there and I tried watching it, and I seen it moving through, and I looked down and I looked back up and I seen it leaning out, and it leaned back in. I was like, what in the world is that? And I sat there and I looked at it, and it done it again, and that's when I seen the arm hanging out. I was like, that's a Bigfoot. I was like, people aren't crazy. I said, these things are real. I mean, everything, just all my emotions and the fear and everything sitting. I was like, what's this thing going to do? Is this thing going to come after me, or what's going to happen? So, I mean, I was sitting there, I was shaking. I mean, I don't know what the feeling was that come over me. I was just froze. I did not want to move. It still traumatizes me to this day, thinking about how just it was leaning out and it was looking at me. And the only thing I knew of to do was to take a picture, because if I didn't have that, nobody would have believed me. So I mustered it up and I managed to snag that picture. And the weirdest thing that happened after I snagged that picture, I had a brand new phone at the time. It was like all of a sudden that phone was just drained. I mean, I had it was on charge, and it had like 70-something% battery, and it was just drained. Like when I snagged the picture, it was just drained. And I just sat there and I looked at this thing, and that thing turned around and it went back up onto the ridge and just disappeared. I never seen it again. I was just like, did this really just happen? Did I just see a Bigfoot? And I put my phone in the cab of the truck, and I was just trying to get it back on. I locked myself in the cab of the truck. I was like, I'm not sticking around outside. So I was just sitting there, and when my phone came back on, I looked at the picture, and I was just like, that's a Bigfoot. I mean, that's not a bear. I mean, this thing is literally just like shifted itself out from around the brush up there, and it's still, I mean, right there after I had this encounter, I mean, it had a big impact on my life. Like, I didn't deer hunt for 3 years. I went deer hunting for the first time this past Thanksgiving since I had this encounter, and it's just had a huge impact. I mean, I've told people about this encounter, my own family, my own friends. My family thinks I'm crazy. My friends, they're not my friends anymore. And I mean, it's just been a roller coaster of a journey since I've had this encounter.
I guess I didn't realize that the encounter happened so many years ago. I thought it was more
Yeah.
recent, but okay.
No,
So
but
3 years.
I've got some a recent one that I can talk about since I've been doing my field research. I'll throw that.
Okay. Well, let's start with this one that you just shared with us. I think we have the picture and audio possibly of you searching for. Okay.
Well, I'm going to start with this first picture. This is, and there's a second one that's a little more zoomed in, and This one, you know what? I asked my son about it, Harley, and I said, "What do you think this is? What does this look like to you?" And he said, "It looks like something peeking out from behind the bushes." I mean, my son is 9, right? And I just thought he nailed it. So now I'm going to put it side by side with a little bit more of a zoomed in and highlighted picture here.
Yep. Which I've had people tell me that they said that looks like its ears. I was like, I don't think that's its ears. I mean, because I think that's just the shadows from the leaves around it. But I've actually had that photo cleaned up and stuff, and it's remarkable. I mean, there's somebody cleared it up good enough where you could see its eyes and its nose, and apparently there was somebody ran it through software on their computer, and it looks like its hair is reddish brown. I guess it just looked black from the shadow. I'm not 100% sure. But
and CJ, could you describe to the people who might be listening on the audio version of this?
So, and Harley, this is the picture you said that you took right before your phone died.
Yeah,
right?
That was literally when I snapped that picture. I looked back at it, and I looked at my phone, and it was just zapped, drained. It was the strangest thing that I've ever experienced. I mean, it was a brand new phone that I had.
Yeah, I mean, we hear that often about things. We'll get into that later. Okay, so what we're looking at, it's almost like a small cliffside that looks like maybe some earth erosion has happened. And there are trees up there. And far away, you see one of the trees and you see what looks like a black shadow of something kind of peeking out from behind. I guess, are we seeing the other arm on the other side of the tree? Is that
I believe that's the other. That's like part of the shoulder or
so
part
yeah,
of the arm. Yeah.
Almost like you're seeing the arm or shoulder on one side of the tree, and as if the creature is peeking out around the other side. Definitely from this picture looks very hairy and black. You're saying reddish, maybe. Did it look reddish to you when you were seeing it in person?
Whenever I first seen it, it looked black because I mean it was probably 100 yards away. I mean, it looked black, but the way that I had that image cleaned up, it looked reddish brown. I mean,
yeah. What's really interesting to me is that the arm and shoulder that's on the one side of the tree seems to be far more transparent than what's on the other side. And I mean, we can get into sort of multi-dimensional creatures and what have you later on, but there seems to be something different about the two sides. But let's have everybody else jump in. DJ, what's your first thought when you see these pictures?
Well, first of all, that's an amazing photo that he's got right there. And it's interesting that, I'm sure what I'm going to guess, Harley, like first thing that went through your mind is the length of, well, I guess you didn't see the arms, but when people say it looked like a bear, there's such a disparity in arm length, right?
Yeah, I'm 6'6", and that thing was dwarfed. I was dwarfed by that thing. I mean, if I had to guess, I'd say it was easily 8 feet tall, if not a little bigger. I mean, the really thing that I remember was how wide this thing was. I mean, it was like a 4x8 sheet of plywood. I mean, it is massive. Just the width of it. That was what concerned me the most. I was like, this thing can literally snap me like a twig.
And second and last question is, did you have that feeling? A lot of people have that feeling of being watched. I'm curious if you had a visceral reaction prior to going, oh, blank, that's a, so forth.
Well, I mean, the only thing that really I don't remember feeling like I was being watched. I heard that growlish grunt. If that creature would have never have made that noise, I would have never have known it was there. I think it was letting me know, hey, this is my area. You stay where you're at, and I'll go on about my business. I think it was just giving me a heads up that that's his area. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but that's how I feel about it.
Thank you. That's a really interesting, just to add to that data set, right, guys? Like we hear people that I felt like I was being watched the whole 9 yards, but no battery draining. Well, in this case, Harley had the battery draining, but he didn't feel like he was being watched. So that's all I have, and pass it on to the next panelist.
And in regards to the battery draining, we've got a comment here from listener Joel Martin that says EMP levels, so electromagnetic pulse levels, are common and are on a protocol behavior. Oh, behavior is territorial. I'm a little confused about that statement, but Maybe somebody else can break it down for me.
Look,
Maybe
I
that's two
think-
separate thoughts.
I think that electromagnetic field and electromagnetic pulses, I think all that stuff can tie into Bigfoot. I mean, how does a creature be there 1 second and then just gone the next? I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, as big as they are, you figured they would make a sound. I mean,
Right.
it's pretty wild stuff.
All right, Blake, let's get your input here on these images.
Well, first of all, I've got to commend you on the photos. For the situation, they're as clear as they can be, you know. And I don't know how I would have reacted in your shoes. I focus more on looking towards the oceans, the seas, and the lakes, as opposed to looking towards the wilderness and the forestry. But I can tell you that if I was in that position, I would have felt the fear, that a lot of people feel about that. So kudos to you for working through that, and taking the picture. But I can see it. It's peeking out between the trees, and I'm almost 6'5". So that thing from that scale, even from this angle that I'm looking at, looks that it's at least 7 foot, if not 7'4". I mean, it's massive and it's big.
Yeah.
I'm around 260 pounds, and that whatever that is, that creature has to be at least, I'd guess, around 300 or 400. Easy.
I think it was more than that. I mean, it just the sheer width.
I mean, just being conservative from what little bit of it, I can in relation to that.
Oh,
but I mean,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So, but I mean, my question to you is, so you said everything changed for you when you saw it. So when you go out now, do you still feel like you've tapped into some other sense of yourself that you can feel that there is something there, even if you don't feel like it's watching you? You feel this other presence there with you?
Absolutely. I will say that has happened for sure. I actually,
I'm going to the gym.
but I had a friend with me a couple of weeks ago on January 7th, and he had never seen a Bigfoot. He's the author, George Lunsford. He's from Marion, North Carolina. He'd never seen a Bigfoot. And I took him out here to this area, and we went down in this holler, and I had a feeling we were being watched, but I wasn't going to say nothing to him until I was for certain. And out of my peripheral, I see it move in behind a tree. And I told him, I said, there's one right up there. I said, look. He said, is that a shadow? I said, no. I said, that's a Bigfoot. I said, watch this. So I walk maybe 10 yards, and I step on a branch, and that sounded like a dang on gun going off. And all of a sudden, he said, oh, just blank. And he was like, I see it. I was like, yeah. I said, that's a Bigfoot. He's like, I thought it was a shadow. I was like, no. I said, no.
It's remarkable. It's really remarkable. My other question for you is, you were talking about the manipulation of electromagnetic pulses and fields. Do you feel like there is a chance that, because this does seem to be a common thing among sightings and encounters, that Bigfoot has the ability to manipulate the fabric of what we can see dimensionally, as opposed to what we don't see? Because it does seem like the Bigfoot can vanish and appear at will and not make a sound, but then be gone, and then be gone in such a way that you wonder if it was ever there in the first place.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. 100%. Because I have, like I said, I walk through and hike, and I have a camera filming behind me on my back when I hike through these areas in the Great Smoky Mountains. And I walked right through this area multiple times. There's no stump there, nothing, no explanation. There's just a wide spot right there in the trail that I managed to capture the Sasquatch watching me. It was squatted down, and it was peeking out from around that tree, but I never knew it was there until I went back and I looked at my footage, and it was just like, oh snap, that thing was not even 30 yards from me, and I didn't even know it. Me personally, there is a lot to these creatures that people, take for granted. I mean, there's a mystery to them for sure. Me personally, what helped me get through my first encounter, my faith is a big part of my life, and what he helped me get through it. And, I personally believe that these creatures are some way, somehow descendants of the Nephilim. I'm not saying they're the full Nephilim. I'm saying there's some way, somehow, descendants of them. You know, I mean, I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. You know,
That's a term I haven't heard before. Did you say the Nephilim?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's gonna have to break that down for me.
Fallen angels from
Okay.
biblical times, they procreated with human women, and they made a race of giants called the Nephilim.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Tim and I think did a Twitter space on it, and then Nathan did an hour on it with Matt Knapp from Bigfoot Crossroads. They literally did an hour on the Nephilim and the biblical implications and so forth. So,
all right, Smitty, let's get your quick input and any questions that you might have for Harley.
I just wondered, and how many times, I think it's interesting you said the reddish tint to it, because I had a relative who saw a Bigfoot, and that's exactly what she said. And it was in Citronelle, Alabama. They were driving past the field, and she saw, instead of about a reddish figure stand out, and it was too big to be any other animal that she'd ever seen.
But I'm sorry, was that at a family reunion?
No, it was not. Thank you. It was not.
But can I just say, Smitty, that place is so squatchy. I've driven through there a number of times. It looks
really?
so squatchy there, man.
Yeah.
Sorry, Smitty.
I've been through Citronelle a lot of times, but she legitimately saw what she believed to be Bigfoot, and she described it exactly that way, a reddish, orangish colored hair.
Well, I didn't know it was that color until I had somebody send it back to me. It was like, that thing is reddish brown. That thing ain't black, because they ran it through their software on their computer and they enhanced it certain ways, and it showed that it was actually reddish brown. Just the way it was standing, its shadow, it made it look black.
And so have you had 2 interactions now?
I have actually had 3.
3.
There is another one that I haven't told anybody but a select few about this one.
Yeah.
So I walked into this area where I've been gifting them, and I heard one moving over in front of me. I was like, okay. I was like, I'll just see if you peek out. Well, I see him peek his head out, and I was like, okay. So I turned, and I turned and I was facing him. Now I had my backpack on my back, and I had my weapon on my side. So my weapon was facing the main trail. And I was sitting there looking at him, and he was just peeking back and forth looking. And all of a sudden, to my left was a loud snap. And then almost instantly, right after that snap stopped, there was one behind me. I don't know how far away it was, but he sounded like he was right on top of me, but it was just like stomping its feet in place. It was wild. I just said, whoa. I said, easy, easy. I said, I'm going. So I just went back to the main trail, and I just went on further up the mountain.
Almost like a buck, when he sees you in the stand, he starts stomping his feet and blowing.
Yeah. It was wild. Like I definitely got close to something. I don't know what it was, but they didn't like me being there.
What about all of you? I wanted to ask this. Do you believe that some people are more, or the Bigfoot are drawn to certain people more so than other people? Because a lot of people do have multiple sightings, and some people don't ever see a Bigfoot in their whole life, and some people see them very frequently.
You know, I think they can sense your intentions. I mean, as people say, they can mind speak. And, you know, I will say that when I was hiking through this area, I found an X, and it was almost like a voice in your head that's not your conscience, you know, and it said Jerome. And I was like, well, what in the world? So I got home and I looked it up, and I may say this backwards, but I don't remember if it was, I think it was ancient Greek. It means elder. And then in like several other languages, it means guardian. So right there at that X, something in my head said Jerome, and I look it up, and it means elder or guardian. I mean, and apparently the X or whatever, you know, that's their marker for something. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
all right. So DJ, I'm just going to throw Smitty's question your way. Do you think some people are more likely to see them than others?
You know what? Just on what Harley said, Tom Cantrell, who had his first sighting in '58 when he was doing forestry work because he graduated with that degree out in that Bluff Creek area and had his first sighting. I mean, I think it's possible. Some people say that you get marked when you've seen one or something. So it's a trend, and from a data standpoint, I think we have to take that seriously and say, our mind's open to that possibility that some people are more prone to it, specifically because we know people that have been researching for years. I'm not going to name anybody because it doesn't need to be like a black mark on their record, but we know people have been researching for years and haven't had a sighting. So that's a good hypothesis, Smitty. I think we need to gather data on that one.
Blake, what's your take on all of that?
I really do. I mean, I kind of see, that point and agree with well, everyone that's talked about it so far in the, on our roundtable here. I think that when you see something or experience something like that once, even if it's not per se a Bigfoot, like for me, I saw things in the water, but I think once you see something, some extrasensory part of yourself becomes attuned and aware to other things that operate on that similar field. And though I've never seen a Bigfoot, I am from an area where the legendary Sugar Flat Road creature was killed and hit by a car. That's not far from me, about an hour up near Lebanon in Murfreesboro area. Though I've never seen one in person, I've been out in the woods, just, playing guitar, or, just sitting, kind of enjoying things, or, thinking about what I'm going to do next. And I've got the distinct, extremely unmistakable feeling that I've been being watched by something. Now, I don't know what it is, but I sense that it watches, but I'm not afraid of it. Whatever it is, minds its own business, but I know it's there. And I think that's the commonality. It's like an untold mutual respect. I'm in their area, their kingdom. That's where they operate. And as long as I do what I need to do and not interfere with what they're doing, everything will be good. But it's just a mutual respect. So, I mean, I think that, that people are opened up to that when they experience things, because on some scale, all of these things are related. Lake monsters, cryptids that way, in aquatic cryptids and land cryptids and, things like that. They're all operating out of this same area, the same universe, the same space we are. It's just some, I think, can manipulate what we see so that we don't see them, but they see us. But that can't take away the extrasensory perception we have that we know something is there intuitively. So I think that's very plausible. Absolutely. That's a good question, Smitty. Very good question. I like it.
Hey, Blake, I just want to let him know real quick. There's a famous Georgia researcher from probably a decade ago named Alex Midnight Walker. And he famously went in the and I don't suggest you go in the woods alone, maybe to the degree that he did, but he played guitar. He played guitar for Bigfoot and got a lot of vocalizations, tracked a lot of the linguistic data points of when they would communicate. So you're on something. Keep going.
And Tim, we have some more video and audio, right, of some of Harley's experiences.
Absolutely. I'm not going to bring up my personal grudge with the Sasquatch after the mention of the Bigfoot crooning person, but I will bring up this.
What do you have against woodwind players?
It was personal.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So I do have to preface this by saying, the pictures for me, I couldn't personally rule out a bear, and bears are very heavily populated in that area. And Harley could tell you. And by the way, I want to say thank you to our friend Blake Best. Blake passed on Harley's information to us and his story, and we appreciate that. And I went into researching Harley's story, right? So Harley could tell you we didn't immediately just schedule a podcast. I set about putting some research in, and for me, the photos were the least impressive. But it's only when I got into this video of these tracks and this audio, and for time's sake, I'll only play, I think, just the short form of the audio. But that is when I decided this story had another level to it. Like, it was a lot more than just, you know, two-dimensional photo that we really can't prove anything from. So let me pull up this video Harley took here.
You can see how we've been in here working around. Okay. Well, here's the first one. Somehow it was walking through here. And there's another one right there. And then there's another one right here. You kind of see way down. There's another one there, and then the other one was back there. So it went doom, doom, boom. And then there's trail.
CJ, I see signs of plantar fasciitis. Does that concern you at all? Wait, where'd CJ go?
What happened? I removed myself. I tried to unmute myself. I'm like, I'm out of this conversation. That's an impressive video.
Need some orthotics, right, Harley?
Yeah.
Well, you need some orthotics.
Well, I mean, right. I don't know why I stopped videoing right there, but I mean, the trail, I mean, I couldn't really make out any of the other ones. I mean, those were the best ones that I could like show, you know. I mean, that was all I could really show. I mean, it's because I knew if I didn't have anything else other than those pictures to show that I had actually had this kind of encounter, nobody was going to believe me. I mean, I still had people who didn't believe me, you know, my own family, my own friends, and it was really hard. But the really good thing that I noticed about one of those tracks was like right there's a dried up creek bed. And that first track that I show, I mean, you can see that where it came across, it slid. And that I found those the day after that I saw the creature, because that trailway leads up to the ridge where I had seen the creature. I didn't even had noticed that, but sure enough, that trailway leads up to the ridge where I'd seen it.
You mentioned in the video that you guys had been doing some work back there. What sort of work were you doing? How was it affecting the earth, the ground right there?
I mean, nothing really. I mean, we just walked back through there to see if there was anything that needed to be taken from the woods back there to put in the auction, because there was an old semi-trailer back there on the hill. We didn't know if he had bearings or just different sawmill equipment back there in the trailer. I don't know why they had a semi-trailer over there. I'll never know, but we went over there to look and see if they had anything in it that could be put in auction for the owner to get him a little extra money.
Okay. And I tell you what, I will say again, the photos are one thing, but the bear doesn't explain the video of the tracks. I thought the tracks were impressive. I'm going to play it.
We've been in here.
And I'm going to unmute myself, but I mean, clearly something has moved its way through there. And that is definitely not a bear. And it does appear to be a huge stride.
There's another one right there. And then there's another one right here.
So again, I think it's rare, right, that we have, not only photo, but also some video track evidence.
Tim, one thing I just want to ask you about, I'm no expert when it comes to, to bears, but it seems uncharacteristic that a bear would stand up to have a look at something, whether it be prey or just for curiosity's sake. That's not their normal posture, and to lean around something. Normally they would just be at their height, and they would just kind of maybe, I'm sure they would peek around the tree, but it would be very unusual if they're not trying to get something, scare something, potentially attack something, to be standing and leaning. So that kind of, and again, I'm no expert on bears, but just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, and I would say it's unusual, but I will say not unheard of. Number one, there's a recent Ring video. The Ring doorbell cameras, right? Mm-hmm. And I can't remember where they're at. They might be Tennessee or Montana, but on the Ring video, sure enough, there's a bear walking on two legs down the driveway.
Oh, wow.
And just jaunting on down the driveway. And our friend of the show, Adventurer Dane Beck, right? He's from deep Montana, and he has pictures and videos of bears galore. And it's not unusual. It wasn't unusual for them on their ranch to see bears, navigating the brush, but toddling, right? Like, what's it called when a toddler is scooting along
Toddle.
Toddling, right? So
You had
the
it right
bears
the
will
first time.
the bears will toddle in the brush. So I think it's not unheard of that, hey, he's up there on a cliff, right? The brush might actually be some sort of toddling, like balancing situation going on. But I do want to play this audio here. And before I do, I want to give a shout out to another person who was supposed to join us tonight. Make sure to check out their podcast, Elk 101. His Corey with Elk 101. And I'm going to admit, I thought I had solved this case, and I was going to break it to Harley. You know, I appreciate you sharing all this with us, but I don't think the show's going to be right for us because I think it's an elk. But so I contacted Corey, elk expert with Elk 101. I actually did a little research, folks, and I thought, well, you know, in this part of Virginia, there's not. When I heard the audio, I'm like, could that be a moose? Could that be an elk? Well, I know there's not moose in Virginia, and I verified that, by the way. And I said, well, there's not elk either, are there? But I'm going to make sure. And I actually discovered, sure enough, there is one very well-known herd of elk very close to that area. Okay, so I said, I've got it. This audio is an elk, right? Like that's what it is. But I contacted Corey with Elk 101. I didn't give him any background information. I said, hey, can you just listen to this audio? Tell me what you think. And he wrote me back. Wasn't that much later. And he was supposed to join us tonight. So shout out to Elk 101. Make sure to listen to him. And he said, Tim, I don't know what it is, but I can tell you this. It's not an elk. And that blew my mind. I said, wow. Okay, we really got something here. So I want to play this audio for you. This is, I don't know if I'll play this entire clip. I got 2 clips here for you. So listen carefully to this.
Getting goosebumps right now listening to it again. Yeah, it's wild.
Where's the truck?
Harley, was this audio that you took?
Yes, yes, it was. Yeah, I was sitting in the cab. I was sitting in the cab of the pickup truck, and I was sitting in the sawmill area where I could park, and I was just sitting there cataloging and everything. And the night actually after I saw the creature was when the howling was. But that I don't know how to describe those. I guess they were kind of like howls too. But the first set of vocalizations I heard was the long, drawn out, like wailing sound. And
yeah, and I've got some of that, and I think this clip is even more interesting.
There's like a guttural grunt at the end.
That's it. That's the one.
Let me start that back from the beginning.
If that don't send chills down your spine.
I want to give a shout out to UFO Intros. Our friend said my brother recorded the same sound.
What's up,
Listen to that. And I got to tell you, and I'm going to start this first clip. It's a little longer, but I'd like to say something while this is going on. I get the sense when I hear this that multiple entities are communicating with each other.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize that. I had somebody verify that for me.
It sounds like it sounds like language almost to me.
I'm going to serve this one back. Mounts, is that your family reunion?
They're communicating.
Yeah.
I thought you guys would be proud of Tim's research.
It's time for the barbecue. Come on, boys.
Tim's research, Tim ruled out one animal. Like,
But-
of all
but
of
the
the
thing-
animals that it could
well, no,
possibly
no.
be, he ruled out one.
Well, no, because
I'm teasing.
Corey is not just an elk expert; he's an outdoor wilderness expert.
Well, I'll put it this way.
He cannot place any sound that he's familiar with in the outdoors that was
I've
making
hunted
this.
in a lot of different states
I'll
and spent
tell
a
you.
lot of time, and I've never heard anything like
I'll
that.
tell you, I've had people, my friends and family have told me that's a coyote or that's an elk.
No.
And it ain't neither one of those.
No.
No,
Or
I've heard
wolf.
coyotes before. That's not a coyote.
I
And I
hear
can get
coyotes
the-
every night.
I've got
I
about
can get
30
David
behind
Ellis.
my house.
I'm sorry. I can get David Ellis also because I think I can get contact with him now if you guys want me to send it to him.
Right now? Yeah.
Well, not at the moment, but I'll
So let's get him
I'll
on the show.
I'll get him on the
Also,
He can call in. I can Bluetooth him straight over the phone.
I got a spectrograph, whatever you want to call it, however they say it. The vocalizations ranged from 500 to 2,000 hertz.
That's awesome. Awesome.
That is chilling, honestly. So, I'm with you, Tim. When I look at the picture, I can't necessarily rule out a bear of some sort. I've seen bears climb my in-laws' trees like it's nothing. But you add the tracks to it, you add this sound to it, and there's almost no denying that this is something we haven't seen before. We being us. I know people have seen Bigfoot before, but it's wild.
Hey DJ,
Sure.
Smitty, what about that? We got Harley, you too. So we got all those vocalizations. All we need is one more to play drums, one to play bass. I got the guitar, and we'll
Dude.
have a band. Right?
I can play some drums, man.
Let's, you know who might be for hire? Sax Squatch.
No, we're not having a saxophone.
I would have to do the singing because I can't play any instruments. But
Oh,
Look, he's
yeah.
still actually. You know what? He can come on because he owes me $50. So, and I'm not ever get it back.
Mississippi's Hank Williams over there to the right, to CJ's left.
I honestly will say this seriously. I have coyotes all around me, and I've never heard them sound like that.
No.
I mean,
It's
as a matter of fact,
deeper.
I'll tell you this real quick, and that's but the first night that my wife and I came home from our honeymoon,
Oh boy,
And
we don't want to know what that has to do with
Oh, Lord.
it was about 2:00 in the morning, and she woke
What
me
in the
up.
world?
She woke me up and she said there are a bunch of kids outside the house screaming. And I said, that's not kids, that's coyotes. Let me go back to sleep. And, but they don't sound anything like that. I've
No.
never heard one
The
sound like
closest animal
coyotes-
noise, like a
Coyotes are
whale,
high
maybe.
pitched. Coyotes are high pitched. That's something deep.
that. Yeah, and they don't do
Guttural.
that long of a. I mean, usually there's a more short kind of
Very
yips and
guttural,
stuff.
very guttural inside, very deep.
And in this first clip that I'm playing right now, it just sounds like multiple individuals at varying distances using, I don't know, I'm going to compare it to whales, right? Like various
That's great, man.
It actually
vocalizations
does.
to communicate.
Did you guys hear me say whales just like 45 seconds ago? I tell you, this man is taking everything that I say tonight and claiming it as his own. You're gonna go back and listen.
Hey, next Tim is going to have Squatch songs, the new album.
TJ,
right?
maybe you should be the PhD.
He rode my coattails at school for a long time.
I mean,
my goodness.
I'm taking CJ's BS to a new level.
For those that are just joining us, we are chatting with Harley Owens about his Bigfoot encounter. And in case you missed all of it, Tim has just reiterated everything I've said all night long. So if you have any questions for our wonderful panel or for our guests, please do put them in all caps. We would love to pull some questions into our conversation tonight.
Some of that, I think, sir, will save for closed session.
You just can't let me talk, can you? You can't do it. You cannot help yourself, sir. All right.
Oh, my
Let's
goodness.
wrap up our conversation about Harley's experience, and we'll dive into some Bigfoot questions. So, Harley, anything else you would like to share about this experience or any others that have happened?
Well, one thing that I want to do, and I say this to everybody I talk to on a podcast, you know, I just want to encourage anybody, if you've had an encounter, share it. If you won't, don't tell your name. You know, I chose to tell my name and get my story out there, you know, because all I'm trying to do is raise awareness, you know, and that's what I'm doing now with my group on Facebook. I mean, I'm going out and I'm filming while I'm out there, and sure enough, I'm catching individuals on film, and you know, they've been interacting with me. Like I made a high out of some sticks, and they would rearrange the sticks in different ways, you know, and then I'd stack rocks. Either they'd knock a rock off or they would place a new one. It's always different every time I go in there, you know, and it's definitely helping me, you know, try and get over my fear. What I had was fear of them, you know, but now I've come to learn that, hey, you know, I know they're real now, and the worst that can happen is they run me off. I mean, if I get too close, and I mean, I haven't stirred the pot too hot. Yes. I mean, I don't know. I really don't have all the answers that I'm really looking for yet, but you know, I'm in the heart of the Smoky Mountains, and they're here.
Harley, just make sure only organic fruit. You know, CJ wouldn't feed her kids, you know, fruit with the pesticides. You don't want to feed that to Bigfoot either.
Hey, I will say this. Okay. I will say this. They don't like Granny Smiths. They'll only eat the red apples. Hey, I'm telling you.
Too tart. It's like,
it's just like my kids.
They'll only eat the red ones. I come to learn that, and they're just like us. I mean, they just don't like the green. They'll eat the red ones all day long, but they'll leave the green ones.
Ironically, sag nuts are in a red wrapper.
and you're not getting good apples anyway, unless you're going to like a farmer's market. Otherwise, you're getting supermarket stuff where it's like 10 times too sweet than what
lab grown.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and you brought up Harley, Marion, North Carolina. I want to give a big shout out to Marion, North Carolina, one of my favorite towns with one of my favorite Bigfoot festivals and one of my favorite breakfast joints, Elevate Breakfast Company. They've got a UFO and a Bigfoot on their logo. They're great.
I'll definitely have to try that place out. But yeah, like I said, George, he was the one that I took out there, and he'd never seen one. And sure enough, I was right there with him to have his first Bigfoot encounter. And it was just a special moment. I was like, well, I brought him out here, and he had an encounter, and that was all I could ever ask for, you know. I mean, he's just over the moon about this encounter. Like he's already working on a book about it and everything. He George Lunsford, if you haven't checked him out, Monsters of the World is one of his books, and he's got Monsters of the World U.S. edition, I believe that's the name of it. But he's from right there in Marion, and he's a great guy. And I really was. It was really special to be there with him and have that first-hand encounter. I mean, we got within 20 yards of him. I mean, it was wild, and this just happened January the 7th. So I mean, I'm already kicking off this year with encounters. So it's just wild. It's just nonstop. I mean, I go in here twice a week, and it's always changing different. I mean, they're in this area. I don't know why, but I mean, they're here.
Yes. If you would have asked me 4 years ago if I believed in Bigfoot, I would have laughed and said, I didn't even think that. I thought Bigfoot was just a joke. Like I thought that was group, you know, just me. A group haha, that's funny. But just yesterday I was volunteering in one of my children's classrooms, and a dad was volunteering, and he goes, hey, your name came up today. I just found out that you do a podcast. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm the Bigfoot UFO mom, you know, like, oh, okay. You know, and he's like, I had a Bigfoot encounter. And this other woman that I know, she had a Bigfoot encounter. And these people start telling me their stories. I mean, I've heard so many Bigfoot encounters now that it would be very hard to deny their existence, just because I've met so many very intelligent people that have had their own experiences. But this all brings us to a question that one of our listeners had shared with us. And this is Duncan. I'm going to butcher your last name. Frary, maybe? Duncan said, is there any physical evidence for the existence of Bigfoot? And this is the age-old question, right? Like, we have a lot of people who are having sightings. We have so many people studying Bigfoot. We've got, the Matt Pruitts out there who are going and looking for Bigfoot and looking for evidence. For all of those of us that are here tonight, have you heard of any true physical evidence of Bigfoot?
Well,
so I'll start with you, Harley.
Absolutely. I mean, you go and look at the Sasquatch Genome Project. I mean, how else could they make a genome for something that's not real? I mean, if you go into it and look, the mitochondrial DNA from a Bigfoot has human mother. So, and the mitochondrial DNA only comes from the mother. So the mother's human. Whatever the nuclear DNA is from a Bigfoot, something completely unknown. If you go and look into it, and I highly recommend, just if you haven't looked into it, check out Scott Carpenter's DNA study in a nutshell. It's on his YouTube channel. I mean, whenever I looked up Bigfoot research in Tennessee, that man's name popped up, and I didn't know he had passed away when he did, or I would have met up with him before. And I was just like, man, if I'd have started doing this sooner, I could have met up with him and got tips and stuff, but it just happened at the wrong time. But I've watched almost all of his YouTube videos, and he's a huge inspiration to me. And I'm doing what he done, walking around hiking the trails of the Great Smoky Mountains, and I'm catching him on a trail camera that's strapped to my back. And it's I never imagined that I would be researching these creatures, and sure enough, I am.
Here you are. Yes. Wow. I did not know about the genome sequencing. I think might be new information for a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that with us. DJ or Blake, I know you guys have been involved with a lot of people in the Bigfoot world. Do you guys know of any other physical evidence out there?
Well, Darby Orcutt at NC State is doing a project right now. That's the latest one. Controversy around the Melba Ketchum study, but then again, I've heard people I think it was Rich Germal, from the former law enforcement officer from Washington, made a compelling case for her. Thing is that there's a lot of evidence out there, and Dr. John Bindernagel said that these anecdotes are a form of evidence in addition to the footprints that people have seen, where they have seen the creature and then they were able to go and cast a print behind that sighting. The vocals that appear on a different spectrum, hair that's been recovered, and all these sightings. And you only need one to be true. And Wes Germer has 1,000 episodes. Brian has 400 or 500 episodes. So there's just and then I was going to say Vic Cundiff has himself probably like 700 episodes at this point. So there's plenty of evidence out there, but to somebody who doesn't want to believe it, there's no amount of evidence shy of presenting them a UFO right in front of them, or an alien right in front of them, or a Bigfoot that's going to make them say, I believe it. So you just have to prove it to yourself. That's the only person you have to prove it to.
Blake, I'm going to send it your way.
Oh, it's very well said, DJ. I'm quite jealous.
Just a ditto and move on.
I mean, that was really, really awesome. But I mean, as far as what I know about the creatures, like I said, I've spent a lot of my time looking towards the oceans and lakes of the world. It wasn't until I got a little older that I started focusing on wilderness as far as the forestry is concerned. And I mean, as far as for Tennessee, there's been lots of things, but arguably the most famous incident that happened 34 years ago, this past January 5th, in 1989, an ape-like creature that resembled a Bigfoot was struck and killed right outside of Lebanon. It was called the Sugar Flat Road creature because that's the road on which the teenagers killed this creature. For some reason, the body didn't end up getting preserved, but for years, the head was on display. They were able to preserve the head. Now, from what I've learned, the head is no longer on display physically, but there's a hologram, oddly enough, available for you to see of the head. So the head disappeared for several years. It came back in 2001 at this shop, which is no longer open. It was like a curiosity shop in Murfreesboro, and then it vanished again in 2023. So all that's left is this for public viewing is this hologram. But from what I've seen of the actual head, we're talking, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, very substantial evidence to say that there is a creature that's unknown that is, living in the wilderness out there. And I mean, we're not talking something like Stan Hansen's carnival sideshow. People wonder, well, was that fake or was that real or was that this or this? What? There's a lot of conjecture and theory about things like that. But this, in my opinion, I'll put it this way: to paraphrase Fox Mulder, I haven't seen anything, but I want to believe.
Well, Blake, one time if you want to come out here to East Tennessee, maybe we can look up and have you an encounter.
Maybe I'll bring that guitar and I'll start shredding and running out of the damn.
I haven't tried that, so I don't know if it'll work, but I mean it might.
So it sounds like we have some audio that UFO intros shared with us to compare to what Harley shared with us earlier. So those of you that are just joining us, we've had a lot of people jump in and out watching this recording. If you did not hear or see Harley's information from earlier, be sure to check that out after the show. Go back and start from the beginning and watch, because it is very intriguing, worth looking at and listening to. So now we're going to compare it to another audio clip.
Yes, and
with us.
Shout out to our friends at UFO Intros. They're listening on X or Twitter. Hey guys, we really appreciate you. They joined DJ and myself one night for the not so traditional Christmas story. So we were really pleased to have them there for that. And I've jumped in on a lot of their Twitter spaces. They did some great things. Check them out on Twitter. And by the way, tonight we're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we're getting all the comments in. So we appreciate all of you. I think this audio will play. Let's see what I can do here. Let me get it up again. Can y'all hear that?
No.
Nope.
No.
I'm gonna try one more way here.
The other thing I was going to say, Tim, is that even if listening to Dr. Meldrum's hour-and-a-half dissertation on the Patty film alone, for just that one, the best film that's ever been taken.
Oh. We heard that.
I heard
it comes in.
I'd be running for the dang hills.
That's eerily similar.
Thanks for passing that on. According to X, this is a post on UFO Intros. It was recorded near Tin Cup, Wyoming. What a great name. Tin Cup, Wyoming, inside of a camper. They'd heard this twice before. This was the third scream, which his hunting buddy was able to record.
That is
It really
similar.
is similar. This is from, it says December 5th, 2022.
That is wild.
That's what you say, Duncan. By the way, everybody says I would do something until they're in that situation.
Heck no. I know exactly what I would do, and it would not get any closer to that.
You'll never get me to say that I could do what Harley did, because I don't know how I would react, and nobody does.
Well,
Rich Grimal, was a SWAT law enforcement officer, and he was looking for the nearest place to run to because it was between he and his truck. So he ran to a road 75 yards away from his sighting. That's how scared he was. So none of us can say I would do what Harley did, because you don't know that.
Yeah.
You don't know that. So you've been.
And even if you did manage to do what I done, I mean, and you did try to show, people that you're close with, they're still going to ridicule you for that. I mean, that's just human nature. But, I've come to learn and accept that I know that these creatures are real. And sure enough, here 3 years later, I'm still having sightings, and it's just amazing to me that
that's why you've got us. That's why you've got us, Harley, because we, you're either in one or two camps. You either think every single person who in fear has come on one of these shows and told their story, and you guys have all heard them. I don't need to name the channels. Either every single one of them is a liar, but if one of them is telling the truth, it exists. I mean, it's just simple as that. And I think most of them are telling the truth because they have to get through a filter that is, in this case, Tim and CJ and Smitty, or, you know, whether it's Wes Germer or Brian King Sharp, etc. So I don't think everybody's lying. I'm sorry. You guys have great evidence.
And there's just no benefit to it. There's no benefit to lying. Nobody's getting rich off of these things.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting famous off of these things. If anything, like Harley said, they're losing friends and family. They're losing, you know, to share what they've heard and seen. And there is this huge fear and this huge stigma. And I have to wonder why the stigma still exists, given everything that we have seen, everything that the government is releasing on UAPs and what have you. There still is a huge stigma. Even I'm afraid to say that I host a podcast about UFOs and Bigfoot for that same stigma.
Well, we're just a part of the cool kids club. That's what I've been telling.
That's right.
You mean we're not getting famous for this? I'll see y'all.
I mean,
No, I'm cutting my camera off right now. No, I'm kidding.
Your 401k is getting bigger right now, Smitty.
Yes.
That reminds me, I have to say this before I forget. One of my favorite quotes of all time. We had Blake Best on, and he says, and Smitty pops up. I can't remember what episode this was, and he said, "Holy moly, Smitty, you're so much like the Bigfoot. You are rarely seen." And so he
I'm a busy man. What can I say?
like never thought he was going to see the legendary Smitty.
I've been promoting my book a lot, so.
Oh, fun. Well, hey, I had some questions for us all to do a roundtable, but we've really already taken a deep dive into so many Bigfoot themed questions.
I'd
But
say part 2.
oh, you guys are ready for it. Huh? Okay, well, let's do that. I'm not going to do all 4 because I think we've touched on some of this already, but this is going to be your hot take. You have 2 minutes or less to answer these questions. So you got to kind of rein yourselves in, fellas. I know how enthusiastic we get about these kinds of things, but all right, let's talk a little bit about genetics. And this is something that came up already. What do you think, if we find a Bigfoot, if we're able to study its genealogy, what do you think the relation is between Bigfoot and humans? I'll start with Dr. Mounts.
Okay, that's a great question. And I've got a very interesting theory on the relationship between Bigfoot and humans, and it's quite a human story. This is going to be less than 2 minutes. In 1901, October 1901, right? 2 trains took out from Charlotte, North Carolina, heading into the wilderness. And this is a true story. And they just happened to be carrying Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, which happened to include Annie Oakley, one of the greatest shots of all time. The trains pulled out in the early morning hours of 1901. They had just entertained 30,000 people and were heading toward Danville. Okay. Back then it was a single track, and they, called ahead and warned the other train. But the critical mistake was the other operator thought it was just one train, but Annie Oakley and Buffalo Bill were in 2 different trains. And that single error caused a calamity, the likes of which the folks in those parts still talk about. And one witness said 2 engines seemed to have tried to devour each other. One had run halfway inside the other, and then they reared up on the tracks like 2 giant beasts in deadly combat. All the cars on both trains were made of wood and were shattered into thousands of pieces upon impact. 110 horses died in that, and that's not to mention the exotic animals that were on board. And I got a theory from one of the locals that some of those exotic animals were in the realm of orangutans and gorillas, and they escaped out into the wilderness. And to take that even a step further, they believe that not only are those responsible for some of the Bigfoot sightings, but they have mated, believe it or not, with some of the local Bigfoots to create some sort of hybrid situation going on in the hills of the eastern United States. So that's my human story about Bigfoot. It might not have been what you expected, But
Okay,
there
so
you
many
go.
things wrong with that. I should have set the timer because
That was a minute and a half.
No, it was not. Number one. And number two, you didn't answer the question, but I'm not surprised. Okay. Blake Best. If we study Bigfoot's genome, how do you think it's related to humans?
I want to try to do my best to answer that question, hopefully in less than time than the 2 minutes. uh, I really think that if you're able to look at certain sequences of DNA genetic markers and such, you'll find that there are some commonalities. Obviously, walking upright, the individual digits of the toes and the fingers, the ability to grip and hold things. I mean, it's not that far removed from a regular uh, just any other kind of animal that has that kind of ability to grip and everything. And then I mean, we all kind of share those genetic markers with other animals like gorillas and things like that. And I just think that looking at that, certainly grabbing new DNA and it being able to like something not something that's been in storage, because there's always going to be the question of, well, is that still valid, is it still viable, how is it stored? Getting something fresh and being able to look at it that way along next to human genomes and DNA, I think will definitely answer that age-old question.
Oh, and he kept it under the time. Way to go, Blake. We're going over to you, DJ. What's your answer?
So, the answer is I don't know, but I think the most important part of my perspective is not what I think it is, but rather that I'm not rooted in what it is one way or the other. Because I've heard hosts say, "Oh, I hope that it's this. I hope that it's a primate." And it's like, well, if you want something to be something and you're researching it, well, obviously that's going to color your research. So I don't care what percentage it is of human, primate. And there's actually, I think Sasquatch Chronicles had this guy on from the Radon Project that had some really, and I can find that and get that to you guys, but he had some interesting perspectives. The answer is I don't know, and I'm not rooted in it either way, but quite obviously it has some of the very same physical characteristics that we do, that to a degree even a gorilla doesn't have, due to its stature. Although it can lean over on its hands, it typically walks upright. So the answer is I don't know, but I'm not rooted in either direction.
All right. I like that. Non-committal. Okay, Harley, headed your way. You already had a theory on this.
Yeah. It's like I said, from this is just a little excerpt from Scott Carpenter's explanation of this. The hair samples that he had sent in, they came back. They were non-human hairs yielding human mitochondrial DNA. So mitochondrial DNA comes from a human mother, and
unknown father.
you can apparently only get DNA from a Bigfoot from the skin tags of the hair, and every sample that they tested came back with human mitochondrial DNA, and the nuclear DNA was something completely different. So how can a non-human hair come back with human in it? I mean, some type of human hybrid. They're a lot closer to us than what people would think.
All right. And on to Smitty. What's your take?
I'm going to do something Mount's never been able to do. Give a short answer. I believe that it is some sort of primate. I really do believe that if Bigfoot's out there and he exists, he's some sort of primate that has been able to elude humans for this long. And we see that, here recently, even we've seen some species that had been believed to be extinct have been discovered in the last 5 years. So, that's my thoughts.
All right. There's Smitty's hot take. I'm with Harley on this one. I feel like there's some sort of like alien hybrid that was created to create human beings, and Bigfoot is somehow involved in that. That's my take. Okay, moving on to my next question, which is way less serious and doesn't have a point at all, but I think it's fun. If you could replace any actor in any film with Bigfoot, what would it be? I'm gonna go back to Smitty first. So, any actor in a film.
Billy Bob Thornton and Sling Blade. That would be really, really good.
You were so quick to answer that one.
I know. I just thought it. I was like, how cool would that be if he'd be like, "There ain't no gas in it." You know, maybe you should start leaving biscuits and mustard out in the woods out there somewhere, Harley.
Well,
French fried taters.
Yeah, get you some French
I
fried
tell you,
taters.
they love Oreos. They love
Yeah.
Oreos.
Get you some French fried taters and mustard and biscuits.
All
Hey,
right, Dr.
Smitty,
Brown.
y'all need to have.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I just want to tell Smitty, y'all need to have Will Lunsford on, the Arkansas Texarkana researcher, man. He's smooth as silk. You guys have so much fun with Will.
Well, that'd be awesome. We need to write that down.
Yes,
Will
I will.
Lunsford.
I'll send it to you.
All right, thanks.
All right, Dr. Mounds, headed your way. You can replace any actor in any movie with Bigfoot. What would it be?
Well, I guess I'm just going to have to go with one of our favorites. I would love to replace Rowdy Roddy Piper with Bigfoot, and they live, because I would love to see a Bigfoot say this.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
I just think it would be amazing if Bigfoot would say that.
That would be awesome.
All right, Harley, we're going to you. You're replacing any actor in any movie with Bigfoot. What is it?
Well, I was thinking the guy that played Forrest Gump. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. Well,
Tom
I think
Hanks?
I'll go
Tom
home.
Hanks.
Yeah, Tom Hanks. Yeah, I think I'll go home now.
Jenny, come back to the woods.
Oh.
And Mounts, your movie would be better if he wore a kilt like Roddy Piper used to wear to the ring.
Oh, yes.
Next time I come to North Carolina.
I may not be the biggest of friends with a kilt wearing Bigfoot or a saxophone playing Bigfoot, but I am tremendous friends. He's a great friend of the show, a wonderful musician, a wonderful human. The kilted creature, I encourage all of you. He is a bagpipe swamp metal playing creature from the Black Lagoon. I encourage everybody to check out Kilted Creature, friend of the show, and a great kilt wearer.
We've got lots of people tuning in live. You can answer this question too. If you can have Bigfoot replace any actor in any movie, who would it be? All right, and we'll pull those up on the screen. Oh, we've got somebody already. Bigfoot to replace Stanley Kowalski, Marlon Brando in Streetcar Named Desire. That one's lost on me. I don't know that movie. Shoot. I'll have to look at it. I'll have to watch it now. And the whole time I'm watching it, I'll just have Bigfoot in mind.
It's based off of Tennessee Williams play, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I had a car wreck in front of his house.
You did?
How's his car these days now?
It's his house is in Columbus, Mississippi, where I went to college. So
untimed laughter there. Okay. All right, DJ, heading your way.
So mine, I think, is apropos when we have a 6'6" guy and a 6'5" guy here, and then your co-host is a basketball coach. But I would like to see Bigfoot replace Shaq in the Blue Chips, be alongside Penny Hardaway. Right? How awesome would that be?
Yes.
Yeah, but like the baskets wouldn't survive, man.
yeah, I was gonna say, they'd have to have lots of backboards to
For real. Yeah.
tearing them down.
So yeah, that's my pick.
Love it. All right, Blake Best. What's your option?
Well, I was going to say something with Shaq because it was on my mind, but I don't know if I can do that because I feel like I'd be stealing from DJ. But I definitely say replace him as the genie in Kazam because everyone hates that movie anyway, and I think that they'd like it better if Bigfoot came out of the lamp.
No doubt. No doubt.
Oh, that is great. Those are all great choices. Thank you guys for doing that with me, for me. That was awesome. If anybody else is listening and has some ideas, you can send them our way.
Well, what about yours, CJ?
Yes.
I don't know. I think I would like to see, it's not a movie, but I would love to see Bigfoot do like an Oprah Winfrey talk show. Bigfoot is a talk show.
Oh my gosh.
Gail King.
Yeah, that idiot was chasing me through the woods.
Yeah. Just like really hearing people's problems and sharing them.
You know, that's that short story I wrote where he shows up to that guy's house and he's actually telling all about his life and how he avoids humans and stuff. So,
Well, you know, Oprah humiliated my cousin on her show, so I really don't want Bigfoot to go on the Oprah show. Just saying.
Bigfoot would be the Oprah show. Maybe Bigfoot would be kinder
Oh,
to your
Bigfoot.
cousin.
Bigfoot will replace Oprah. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant Bigfoot was a guest on the Oprah show.
No,
he,
would
she,
be the
he or
host.
she is the host. Yeah.
Bigfoot's talk show. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Bigfoot would be much kinder to your cousin. They're blood related.
It's one of the things I would want to say to them if they could understand our value system, which they couldn't, but if they could imagine how many millions of people think about them, talk about them, buy t-shirts with them, if they understood the effect they had on our culture would be amazing, but they wouldn't understand, that value system, they just, or money, how much money is spent on paraphernalia, but it just wouldn't connect with them. They would kind of think, what's that?
Yeah.
And
True.
CJ, if you don't mind me revisiting something real quick, I was thinking about.
I'm guessing
your
it's something
question.
I said. You're going to revisit something I said. You're going to use it as your own.
No, about the Bigfoot human connection, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is something a lot of people don't take into account with modern humans and manscaping and current grooming trends, etc. But if you grew up watching Memphis wrestling, if you remember Dirty Dutch Mantel,
yes,
let me tell you, if Dirty Dutch Mantel went out into the wilderness and just let himself go for about a decade, hey, completely indistinguishable from a Bigfoot, and that I fully believe that.
He would just be a little bit shorter. That's about it. I agree with you.
I mean, hair head to toe, covered in hair, and lots of hair. But you know what? In all seriousness, I think that wild people do exist out there. People off the grid, people turn into wild people, and that could account for part of it.
Well, there's a guy. He didn't turn into a wild person, but he went and lived like right in the center of this big, almost urban area, and he was off the grid forever. He was breaking houses. There's a book, and he lived like that for years and years. People couldn't figure out who's breaking their homes. Who'd break in, steal a bunch of food, take it out to his tent, eat it. He lived there for like years.
That's wild. Apparently, there's feral people in Cades Cove, so I don't know. I'm gonna start researching in that area come February. I'm gonna give the area that I'm in right now a break, and I'm gonna start doing it in Cades Cove for a few months. So,
well, where can we follow you on all of these journeys and all of your research? Where can our listeners follow you?
Bigfoot Reports and Data on Facebook.
Okay. And if people have their own Bigfoot sightings, can they share that with you there as well?
Yes, absolutely. My group is a safe place. I don't let all the fake accounts in there or nothing. I've got a good group of admins in there that keep it tightened down. And, it's a safe place for people to come and share their stories.
Well, great. We've got one listener here who commented. His name's Joel Martin. He said, certain truths and secrets have been uncovered. Never go in the woods alone. That is a high risk. That brings me back to what you guys were talking about earlier. Certain people are more apt to see Bigfoot, are more likely to have experiences. Certainly, those are the people that are going into the woods, right? Like, I don't spend much time in the woods.
That's me.
Haven't seen a Bigfoot. Not surprising.
That's me. I mean, I never really imagined that I'd be doing Bigfoot research, and sure enough, I am. I mean, I have the feeling now that I'm being watched, and sure enough, whenever I go back and look through my footage, I mean, I've got hundreds of hours of footage that I still haven't looked through thoroughly. And I mean, they're there. I mean, whether they're peeking out from around a tree or they're just in that general area. I mean, there's more to this world than what we know of. I mean, I will say this, I honestly thought that Dogman was BS, just like Bigfoot was, but until I managed to I captured a Dogman. I mean, it's literally an upright canine. It's not a it's not a Bigfoot, because my first initial thought when I seen it, it peeked out from around a tree. I was like, oh, that's a Bigfoot. And then I got to looking at it. I zoomed it in some more, and I blowed it up. I was like, that thing's got ears like a dog. And it was straight up pointed ears like a canine. So I'm still working on a bunch of theories between them and the Bigfoot. I can just go on and on and on about that. But
Harley, you've opened a portal, my friend. You've opened a portal, and you have got some otherworldly beings that are following you, it sounds like.
Well, as DJ said, marked by Bigfoot.
Yeah, you've got some hitchhikers, it sounds like, that joined you from that time in Virginia that followed you home.
And well, I guess I've just got a gift. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse yet, but it's something.
The people that know really well would say that it's a blessing. I have been corrected many times in my fear that that my fear is incorrect, that many of these beings are very kind. And yeah, so we didn't even get to jump into Bigfoot as a possible interdimensional being or all of these other things, but I think, have had a wonderful conversation about your sighting, and we thank you for sharing that with us and for being brave enough to come on our show and explain exactly what you have seen and what you captured. And your footage is fantastic. The picture, those of you that are just now joining us, go back, listen, watch, check it out, give us your thoughts, share it with others.
Oh, yeah,
As
absolutely.
a reminder, we're in our final thoughts here. Dr. Mounts, give me your final thoughts.
My final thoughts are this. I think that we have seen with former guests, right, that certain people do have more of an openness to experiencing things. It brings to mind someone Blake's been on with us, the amazing and talented author Becky Cook, author of Bigfoot in Idaho, right? And she has had a lot of experiences. And I think she'll be the first to tell you that one thing that has to happen for more people to have experiences is to get off these phones, right? They got to get off the phones.
Absolutely.
Yes. They got to get away from the electronics. Ironically, here we are on some electronics, but still, you got to get away when you can. You got to get outdoors.
Take our
look into the woods,
into the wilderness with you.
Listen remotely. But seriously, get off your phones. It's an addiction. Get in the woods, connect with nature, look into the sky. And I think by reconnecting with nature, whether you see a Bigfoot or something anomalous or not, you will open your eyes to some wonderful things that you may not have realized otherwise.
Becky Cook also said on our show once that our brains are a lot like, or our minds are a lot like a parachute. They work a whole lot better if they're open. And that has stuck with me.
Damn right.
Yep.
That has stuck with me. And maybe that's the final comment that we need for the night. But as a reminder, we've got some big shows coming up. We hope that you guys will tune in as we have Nick Pope from Ancient Aliens joining us on February 16th. We'll be recording that right before the Ancient Aliens show goes live. So you can ask questions and we can ask him before the show is even out on the History Channel. I feel like this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for all of us. If you're an Ancient Aliens fan, this is a big deal. Send us your questions, and we'll be sure to ask them of Nick Pope. We also have Diana Pasulka coming on February 21st. We hope that you will tune in. Send us your questions for her as well. Once again, her book sold out today in 5 hours, but you can find a link to purchase a copy on our website, bigfootufo.com. You'll just have to wait a little extra longer because they have to print some new ones because they're all gone, but hopefully soon. So lots of exciting stuff. Thank you all for joining us. Blake, DJ, Harley, Smitty, Tim. It's been a fun night. I'm going to have Smitty send us off.
Thank you so much for listening. Be happy, be strange. Listen to All Things Unexplained. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night, y'all.
Night.
Thanks. Like, share, follow, comment, subscribe, support. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the
Yes,
Alaska.
we do.
Okay.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.